Hi everyone, here we are on the Housing Placement tab from the 2019-2020 data collection from the government. So first of all, when talking about housing placement, it does not simply include referral for an individual or providing information. We really want to see a housing placement that occurred. So during this video, we will see many possibilities of how you could fill out this tab depending on the client. First of all, for sure, save the spreadsheet in your files just so you can have access to the full spreadsheet. And afterwards, you can start. And please remember to save as you go. So first of all, you'll have to enter the client ID. This can either be some numbers, some letters. You can go with initials, and you can also go towards a family name. You can also add some numbers, for example, since you'll need a ID for each member of a family. So create a client ID for each individual and each member of the family. These clients' ID should not present any personal information about the client. Afterwards, you'll enter the date where the housing search began. So it must be between April 1st, 2019 and March 31st, 2020. So here we go. So, for example, here client 111 started to search for housing placement on the 15th of July 2019. If, for example, first possibility, the client was placed during the year. So 2019, let's say 12, so on December 3rd. This is going to generate automatically those two red columns. The first one is the number of days to be placed, which is the number of days between the date the housing search began and the date where the client was placed. The second one is a 12-month milestone. This is for a follow-up that you will have to do. I will talk about this follow-up later on. So here in the middle of those red columns, you'll have the column E, where you're going to select the housing transition type. So you're going to have a drop-down menu with many possibilities. So either starting from street, an emergency shelter, hidden homelessness, a transitional housing, permanent supportive housing, criminal justice. So you'll have many possibilities depending on your client. There is also the possibility that the situation is not in the drop-down menu, but then select the one that is the closest to your client situation. So for example here, let's have a child welfare system to transitional housing. You just select. Afterwards, you're going to enter all the demographic information over here. So for example, the gender, you're going to have a drop-down menu. So either male, female, or gender diverse. Afterwards, you're going to have to input a 1 for any circumstances that are correct for your individual, your client. So either with disability, indigenous, an immigrant, or a refugee, veteran. And then you'll have to insert a 1 in the age category. Here for the youth, you're going to have the drop-down menu and then you select. So since we're going from child welfare system to transitional housing, we're going to select a youth over here from, well, let's say 15 to 17. So when you're finished with that, you can click on Create Reporting Table. This is something that you can click whenever you want on, and it's only going to generate some tables automatically. And it's kind of a way to also refresh. So if ever you add in the information in this spreadsheet, just click on Reporting, Create a Reporting Table, and it's going to refresh the information that you have inputted. So here it says the reporting table has been created successfully. Okay, so it's going to bring you to the housing placement reporting tab. So this is automatically generated. You don't have to enter any data on this one. Same goes for the days place summary. So here, let's go to the 12-month milestone date. So this is a date that is automatically generated by the spreadsheet, and it's a date where you should do a follow-up with your client. So for example, over here, it's going to be 12 months after the date the client was placed. So here we're going to have a follow-up to do on the 3rd of December 2020. For this 12-month milestone, you'll have to go into the 2020-2021 spreadsheet. So let's do so. Here, don't forget to save it to your file as well. Click on save whenever you need to. So you're going to have the housing 12-month follow-up tab. So if we go over here we go. So what you're going to do is you're going to need to have your 2019 and 2020 and your 2021 spreadsheet open. So you'll go in the 2019 one, copy and paste the client ID, then some transition type, afterwards you're going to copy and paste the 12-month follow-up date. You can also just input it directly in it. Here you go. Afterwards, you're going to have to answer to some questions. First of all, the housing situation for the client. So you have either 1, 2, or 3 for the possibilities. So column E, K, and L. Column E is if the individual was no longer housed at 12 months. In this case, you're just going to have to input a 1, enter, and it's going to generate a message saying if question 1 is selected, an entry must be made between 1.1 to 1.5. So what you're going to do is you're going to input a reason why the client is no longer housed at 12 months. So you have either returned to homelessness, spent some time in a public institution, deceased, unable to contact, or other if ever it doesn't go under those categories. For the other, you don't even have to input the exact reason why, you just have to input a 1. So the other possibility are number 2 over here. The individual has successfully exited at or any time between the 12 months. So this is a situation where your client exited the housing situation they were in and don't need your help anymore. This also goes kind of with the number 3. So it's either they don't need your help or they require support afterwards. So this is the choice number 3. So they are housed, but then will still require some support in the future. And finally, apart from this, you're going to have to answer to the number 4, which is if the individual was housed 2 or more times in the previous 12-month reporting period. So this is, for example, if the client left the housing situation they had at the beginning, like the first intervention, if they needed more than 1 afterwards, you're going to input a 1 over here. It's going to generate a message saying that you have to select between the 4.1 to 4.4. So you have many possibilities as to why the client needed more intervention during the year. So either return to homelessness, they search for a more appropriate housing situation and occurred it. They spend some time in a public institution or other. So in this case, you only input a 1. So that's all you need to do for the 12-month follow-up. Still, when talking about mini interventions, so in this case, we'll go back to 2019. So if, for example, we said that our client 111 needed more intervention. So this is if, for example, he left the transitional housing in which she was, sorry. So we go with 2020. So if, for example, she started searching again in 2020, in the beginning of 2020, if she was placed, you didn't enter the date. For example, let's say 2020 03 21. Here you can enter a reason, street housing, for example, enter the demographic again. So in this case, whenever someone needs to be housed again, left the first intervention you received, you only have to add them up. In this case, we're not going to take into consideration the 12-month milestone date. This is because we only take the follow-up date for the first intervention that occurred for this individual. So we're not going to do a follow-up in 2021 for this individual, only the one in December. So this is what conclude pretty much it for this individual. If, for example, though, he didn't, this individual was not placed before the end of the fiscal year, this is another situation where you're going to have to input this client in the next fiscal year. So if we go back to 2020, we'll go in the housing placement tab, and here we'll have to input again our client 111. Here we said that the start date for the search in 2019 was the 9th of February. Here we go. So if the individual is placed in 2020, 2021, you just have to follow it. You'll just have to enter the date. And then it's going to generate the gray column, which are the same as the one that we saw previously in the 2019 one. If, for example, the client still was not placed, you're going to take the client back into, take the client into the next fiscal year. So the client's going to be in the 2021-2022 fiscal year as well. And for sure, enter all demographic information that you have on the client. So if I go back, what kind of possibilities do we have left? So we talked about someone that was placed that needed more intervention, a situation, for example, if he was not placed during the year, and the 12-month follow-up. Also here, for example, since we have made some changes to the spreadsheet, we can always just click on reporting a table, create reporting table, sorry. Here we go. So I believe we have seen all the possibilities that we have for this tab. Like I said, if the client was placed or not, and how many interventions they had. So don't forget to click on reporting, create reporting table to make sure that the next two tabs are updated, and save your file. Thank you very much.